Joining me now is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He is an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force and serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thank you very much for being with us. I want to play you what Rudy Giuliani said to Chris Cuomo last night, which is basically that even if the president did lean on Ukraine to go after Joe Biden, there's no problem with that. Listen.
All I can tell you is if what is reported is true, it doesn't make a damn. It doesn't make any difference. If the president of the United States said to the president of Ukraine, investigate the corruption in your country that has a bearing on our 2016 election, isn't that what he's supposed to do?
What is your level of comfort, Congressman, with the president leaning on a foreign leader, perhaps even threatening to withhold military aid to go after a political opponent?
Okay, I want to caveat this at the beginning with saying there's a lot we don't know. So I'm going to have to talk kind of in generalities because a lot of the times these stories end up changing a few days down the road. I will say this, generally, I don't know what the law is on it, but no president should ever utilize or use American power in any way like to affect an election. So if that happened, that would be improper. I'm not sure what law violations would happen on that or anything along that line. But it is very clear our relationship with Ukraine. It's one thing to go after corruption, and we should. I mean, that's a huge problem in Ukraine. But if you say go after it specifically for a political target that affects somebody in office in the United States, that's a major problem. But again, I'm saying this all to say so many of these stories, every week there's some new massive scandal, and the vast majority of them end up to not be what we initially know. But generally speaking, yes, a president should not or could not do this. I don't know what the law is regarding it, but it's obviously would be improper if something like this would happen.
Improper if it did happen, and again, there's a lot we don't know. Right. You say it's improper. What then would you do about it?
Well, I mean, look, I honestly don't know what the law is on that. I'm outspoken about, if something like this would happen, it would be wrong. I'm saying that now, and depending on what the details are, there'll be more to say or not.
Do you think?
But again, I think we're in the problem where every week there's some massive new thing that's going to bring President Trump down that doesn't end up being that, so it's hard to just jump on.
What we're reporting is that the Inspector General of the intelligence community thinks it's a matter of urgent concern. That's something. That's not the media making that up. That's the Inspector General of the intelligence community. So if the Inspector General thinks it's of urgent concern, and Rudy Giuliani says even if it did happen this way, he did nothing wrong, maybe the White House and the Justice Department should just let the information come forward. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where I get confused because I had heard yesterday that the IG was saying it wasn't imperative now. So I don't know. All I'm saying is flat out, no president and nobody in the U.S. government should utilize or level any American power to get concessions having to do with the domestic political election. There is corruption in Ukraine that needs taken care of, but in no point should that be targeted to benefit or hurt somebody in an election. This is, look, any foreign country, and I've said this from the beginning with the whole Russia thing, no foreign country should have any influence whatsoever in American politics, period. And I don't care if it's our best friend or our worst enemy. That's just a fact.
And also, you're someone who was outspoken on wanting Ukraine to get that $250 million in military aid full stop. The idea that perhaps someone was putting strings on it for political reasons, how do you feel about that?
Well, the idea of that happening would be terrible. We don't know, but yes, I mean, they've released the aid now. It's out there. But, yeah, I was confused at why they would hold back on this. Maybe it was for any number of reasons, including making sure it's being spent right. But, yeah, we have to defend Ukraine. We have to give them the aid they need and make sure that they can defend themselves against this Russian invasion. So there's a lot more information to come out. So it's hard to really just, jump to a conclusion on this. But generally speaking, no foreign government should have any influence on American elections.
All right. Congressman, you also feel passionately about Iran and the attack on the Saudi oil facilities. The National Security Council will meet today, we understand, to talk more about a U.S. response to this. But CNN is also reporting that White House and Pentagon officials are growing doubtful the president would order a military strike. Your reaction to that?
Well, it wouldn't be surprising. We saw what happened with the drone strike. There was an order given and then it was pulled back at the last minute. I think that shows weakness and I think, frankly, can invite further attacks. I think in this situation, look, this is not going to end. I mean, this has been continuing for the last year, but it's really continued since 1979, this attack on Americans. It's not going to end. It's like a bully flicking you in the ear. Eventually, you got to hit them in the face, and they'll stop. And that's where we're at right now. So I think there's any number of options we can do, whether it's hitting an Iranian oil facility, hitting the stuff they use to take out the Saudi facility, or what I think makes the most sense is hitting Iranian assets in Syria, where they're actually doing a ton of damage. Israel hits them every now and again with no reaction. I think that's appropriate. But look, if we just continue to sit back and take this, Iran is going to keep doing this because they look tough to their domestic audience and in international eyes.
You keep saying we and hitting us. In this case, it was hitting Saudi Arabia, and again, if it was, in fact, Iran, I know that the U.S. community believes and the president believes that Iran was involved somehow, but it's hitting Saudi Arabia. So the question is, why and how should the U.S. respond to help Saudi Arabia, correct?
Yeah, well, first off, they're an ally of ours. Second off, we do have a unique responsibility in the world to protect global commerce, of which this is a massive violation. But let's just think about this on a different level. Not only did they hit our drone, and that was the cost of losing 10 F-16s, by the way. But if Saudi Arabia actually responds, if you remember during the first Gulf War, Hussein kept hitting Israel because he wanted Israel to respond to create a wider conflict. That's what would happen if Saudi Arabia did this. We've got to realize that if Saudi does the reaction to Iran, you have just created a regional Sunni-Shia conflict right in the Middle East. If that's what people want, simply so they say that Saudi Arabia defends itself, it's fine, but then don't come back and be upset when a regional war kicks off. This is something where the United States can do it. As you know, we protect our allies too. We can do it and not create a broader regional conflict.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you for coming on. We look forward to speaking to you again about this subject, and perhaps we'll all learn more about what's going on with this matter that the Inspector General thinks of as of urgent concern. Thank you, sir.
You bet.